So my name's Carrie Sinclair. Some of you may have been in the first panel. I'm part of the Automated Buildings team, it's our 26th year, providing free education sessions at AHR. So welcome to everyone. So my role today is to introduce this amazing panel and talk about how to scale your talent with tech. We thought we would just get a sense of what backgrounds everybody's got and see if you know how to answer all your questions. There will be questions at the end. So how many people are system integrators? Put your hands up. There you go. And what about like mechanical contractors? And just general interest in the industry or more specific industry, a couple of things. So it's good. So it's pretty much a third. Now, a couple of things. We will open to questions at the end. There is a mic in the middle of the room. If you can, we may be able to move it around, but this is being videoed. You will be able to see all the sessions we've got 14 sessions running over the next 3 days. You'll be able to see them on automatedbuildings.com. We always do a really good summary of them, and you can also find all the detail about the speakers if you want to follow up with them. However, the audience members are not being filmed specifically, so if you can just say where you're from, so that way when you're watching the session, you can understand the context of where the question might be coming from, because other than that, we don't know who you are, just a voice. And then if you have any questions that are specific to one of the panelists, please direct it to them. If not, we'll just have one of them put their hands up and offer to answer the question generally. So with that, we might get started. There are no slides. It's just a conversation. So I want to get the conversation started with Lenny. As an entrepreneur with your own business, assume you saw an opportunity to build something that would really solve the issues in how buildings, digital assets, and people interact. Can you please share with us a little bit about your background and what you saw the challenges at the time and how you're thinking of solving them?
Okay, just want to make sure that's working. Good morning, everyone. So I started off the industry, just to give you some background as a whole, back in 2000. That's in the controls industry. I've been in construction since about 1994. My background is in mechanical engineering. I've worked as mechanical electrical consultant. I've worked as a GC, and I've also worked for Johnson Controls. I started my career in the controls industry in Johnson Controls, which is a great school, by the way. So they teach you how to do things right. And Johnson Controls, most of you know, they invented thermostat. They've been in the industry for a long time. Started with them in 2000, then took a short break from them in 2005, worked for Eaton, manufacturing, in the manufacturing side, then came back to Johnson Controls. My last role at Johnson Controls, I was the global vice president for smart buildings right after the Tyco merger, and then saw an opportunity and decided to leave Johnson Controls to pursue my own career path, basically. And that's what Carrie, thanks for, So I went down the entrepreneur route. And since I left Johnson Controls, I'm involved with 3 companies, all of them in the industry. And it's interesting how it builds up, right? Because I think you need to understand what it means to be in any market. And it starts off with every single person in here, whether you're a manufacturer, you're an integrator, you are looking to sell something, a product, a service, whatever it is. And the more efficient you are in selling that stuff, the more competitive you can be, and the more you can win and you can grow. So in any company, you've got to think about what happens to a company and what happens to the environment around it, right? So there are always market forces that change the dynamics. And the market forces I'm talking about, back about 100 years ago, we had the electrical grids being created and you had the whole industrial revolution kick in, right? About 20, 30 years ago, we saw the invention of computers in our homes as well as our businesses. So that was a shift that happened. And then now you're seeing another shift that's happening where AI is coming in. And every single time a shift happens, opportunities arise from it. Because what happens is before that shift, there's a way you were doing business. And when that shift happens, you've got to change the way you do business because you need to get more efficient and utilize the tools along with that shift. So back to that question about entrepreneurship, there's a great opportunity right now. That was the opportunity I saw the opportunity the minute we went from computers over, and even before AI came in, I realized that a lot of the tools and processes that every single person in here uses is based on Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, tools that were created 20 years ago. And now you have some new tools that are available as a result of cloud-based systems and things like that. And if those tools are available, how do you take that and tap in? So now we have a challenge. There's a shift of AI. There's a shift of technical workforce, which is what our conversation is about. And the key is understand what that shift is and then decide how do you now know that there's a gap in the technical workforce and how do you use this shift in tools and come up with tools that can close that gap. Long answer, but hopefully that kind of set the stage.
That's good, Lenny.
Yeah.
I'll keep going and introduce the panel. So David, can you please share a little bit of your background and what things that you've seen, I guess, that consistently allow you to scale your talent and tech over a period of time, I guess, instead of coming to one session expecting to do it all overnight? Like, what are kind of the things that you've learned with your background?
Sure. Thanks to you, and good morning, everybody. Appreciate you all coming here, and I know the floor opened at 10, and you're here, so we appreciate it. So my name is David Sciarrino. I am head of healthcare solutions at Insight. Insight is a software and professional services company that is backed by tech. So what we do is we use the tech that a lot of our clients use, and we help them implement that in ways that actually drive results. So my background is 25 years in the automation space, ranging from Siemens, Johnson Controls, and multiple startups, a lot of IoT. So I get bored frequently, and I move around a lot. So I've got the opportunity to experience a lot of different pieces of technology, and really understand some of the fundamental challenges we have with actually implementing them in a real world scenario. And something Lenny mentioned is, you've got gaps that you need to fill, and there's a lot of technology solutions out there that say on paper they will fill that gap. There's a lot of legwork that has to happen between making a decision to invest in technology and actually getting the results at the end of the day. So, part of what I do is focus on what has to happen in between those two things, and there's a lot. There's a lot of culture change in organizations. There's a lot of planning, and you have to be very comfortable with change. And a lot of people are resistant to it. And part of what we do is helping people and organizations understand how to run their business, or it could even be a facility, or how to run their facility differently, leveraging technology to help get the results that they need. And that really starts off with really understanding where you are today. And I think most people don't. And to give you an example of that, a lot of our clients, we start off by interviewing their frontline technicians or the facility techs in their building, and we ask them, what do you feel your efficiency is out in the field? And then we ask the same question to the management. And the management always says, we think our folks are about 80% efficient, 80% utilized out there in the field. We get to the field and we talk to everybody out there, and they say, well, we're about 20% efficient. We spend 80% of our time trying to figure out what to do, and 20% of the time actually doing it. So there's a huge disconnect between how people perceive you're running a business, implementing technology, and then how you get those results. So what we see is people aren't really measuring what's actually happening. So when we talk about implementing new technology solutions, a takeaway I would want everybody to have here is go talk to your people, measure what's going on, validate what's going on before you decide to invest in technology. Because if you can't understand or measure something quantifiable that you want to change, you may be misapplying technology. You may spend money on something that doesn't actually drive the result that you need.
That's a great point. Thanks, David. I might follow up that conversation in a moment, but I'd like to introduce Chip now. Obviously, you're at a different kind of scale than maybe some of these businesses with over 100,000 employees in 150 countries. So I'm really interested in how you, as an organization, think about scaling tech and your talent, and then maybe just a bit of a background about what some of the challenges that you see as well.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate everybody coming this morning. My name is Chip Dudley. I'm with Johnson Controls. I've been with Johnson Controls for a combined 35 years. My responsibility primarily as a construction salesperson, but then moved on into global products. I'm responsible for business development with our BAS and controls products. So handle a variety of responsibilities therein. But working with JCI now for that period of time, the fun part about that aspect is I used to sell pneumatics when I came into the industry, right? And then saw the advent of building automation and mini computers serving as the server, if you will. Then the advent of distributed control and adoption of BACnet and all those sort of things. All along the way, fitters are gone, right? Pipe fitters are gone out of our industry today. So it's all about technology, software, programming, right, in the BAS and controls industry in particular. So I think about the answer about our company, right, the large responsibility that Johnson Controls has. At any given time, Johnson Controls has 800 requisitions to hire, right, in these fields, in these technical fields, whether it's a chiller mechanic or a controls technician or fire alarm technician, whatever it may be, but just a huge gap in what we need versus what we have. So one of the things about how you can change that perception for the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs that are looking for these careers is how you market the company, right? How you market the career, right? So Johnson Controls, many of you know us as manufacturing chillers. We call it heavy iron, right, in the industry, right? We manufacture a lot of big products, right? But Johnson Controls today is marketed as a technology company, right? We're no longer really marketing ourselves as an HVAC company. We're a technology company that delivers technology to these buildings, right? And then the mission therein, right? If you go to our website, you can see a comfortable, sustainable, and healthy environment for your customers, your tenants, your patients, your educators, whatever it may be. So I would say as a takeaway, if you're thinking about how to attract new people to your industry, to your business, it's maybe how you market your business, right? Maybe you're not a mechanical contractor. Maybe you're a sustainability contractor, right? You're trying to improve the environment for your customers. What outcome does your company try to achieve, right? And it changes the perception of what people are looking at. If you think about our industry, it's not very sexy, for lack of a better term, right? So change the perception of what it is. We're in the technology business. So that would be my suggestion as a takeaway.
Great. As I said, in about half an hour, we'll open up to general questions. But so I thought we'd sort of frame some kind of questions that we know that people have come to today wanting to have answered. And I guess my own personal experience when I've seen digitization of systems coming in and things that they're supposed to support people, unfortunately, they're normally put in for cost to capture or lower costs. And or, for example, a CRM system or something that's going to try to maximize the growth side of the business. Many of those systems, often if they're put in a business, have been there for a while. How do you guys think about, the tools and the scaling of existing infrastructure that you've put in, or maybe previous management has put in, new people coming in who have a different expectation of how tech works and what they want to do with their phones versus what they might have done in the old days? Like, how do you, can you actually scale all this sort of the business that has all of these bits, or do you need to at some point focus on the more human-centric experience than what may have been a building-centric experience in the past? Just anyone feel free to jump in, but.
So I'll take a shot at it, right? I really think for someone to succeed, whether it's every product, I'll go back to products and selling, right? It's always a case of you sell and then you execute. You need people to sell and you need people to execute. And that's when you make money, right? And those people need tools. So you can do a great job advertising, you can do a great job attracting talent, saying you're a technology company, you do all of these things. But at the same time, there's an expectation from the people you're trying to hire. And there's this shift that's happened. So how many people in here can remember the last time they saw a landline for a computer? Or a landline for a phone? Mm-hmm. We all have kids, and I'm pretty sure there are people below the age of 30 that have never seen a typewriter before, right? So you got to think about it from that perspective. Think about it from that perspective. If you're still using archaic tools for your sales folks and your operations folks, now we're getting into the AI section. Now, what do? Do you immediately go out and absorb AI? I don't think so. You've got to have a pathway to get towards AI, and you've got to take the tools you have and make it better and attractive to the people that are coming in. So a lot of folks here, a lot of tools we have were created in DOS screens and all sorts of screens, and we use Visual Basic with advanced Excel spreadsheets to estimate and things like that. And now nobody wants to look at an Excel sheet. My kids don't even know what Excel or Word is. They use Google Sheets and Google Docs and things like that. And when they look on their phone, which is the interaction they have with technology today, everything that you see on here, you don't see trees on it, you don't see directories on it, you see apps with tiles on it. So no matter how you advertise it, if you don't have tools that match up with it, people are not going to come work for you because they can't even put it together, right? So I don't know if that addressed it or just kind of created that thought process for us to think about, right? And is it possible? It really is very possible, because I can see a shift in the industry where within the company that we do for sales and operations tools, and I won't mention the name, but within that company, we used to have folks that will come in there and say, we just want to use your tool for estimating, and that's it. Now we have system integrators coming in, and they are the next generation of folks, as in the kids of the people that own those system integration companies, are taking over the company, and they don't care about estimating. They care about all of the tools, and they want to adapt and adopt all of it all at once. So what have we had to do? So we had a tool that had all the trees and everything else. We've changed the complete UI for it. And now you can see it in tiles that kind of matches up with what they're used to. And because of that, they're willing to take on all of the tools all in one shot, as opposed to starting with estimating, later on thinking about doing engineering, thinking about doing project management. No, they want it all immediately. So I can see that scaling that tech very quickly if you adopt the right tools that are a fit for the marketplace, as in the people that you're trying to hire, right?
Yeah.
And I could expand on that just a little bit. So I think the biggest hindrance in our industry to progressing technology is the status quo. It's easy and it's comfortable to do nothing. But there's a cost to doing nothing. And understanding what that cost is for your organization is the first step in being able to solve a problem and move yourself forward. So any new solution is going to require an investment, but that investment should create a return on investment, right? So understand, what is your inefficiency by not adopting the new technology? What does that new technology cost? Does it create ROI for me? And what is that ROI, right? And don't take a technology company's word for it. Go talk to their customers. That should be your first question. I want to talk to a customer that's relevant, similar to me. I want to hear how that changed their business. That allows you to make a business decision on investing in technology rather than just worrying about something that may or may not come to fruition, or seeing a white paper and wonder, can this be me? Probably not. White papers are usually the best case scenario for a tech company. So you're going to have a different result, but talk to their customers, get comfortable with what reality looks like, then make that decision if it makes sense for your business.
Lenny, I was thinking back to your comments about sales and then the delivery side of the business, right? So, in terms of what I experience within Johnson Controls and tools, the evolution of tools, right? I think back to the days I started in the business in the late 80s, and, it was all about manuals. We used to have a rack of manuals in our cubicle, right? Yeah. And then it evolved down to, maybe just a handful of manuals, and some of that stuff was online, right? And now it's all available to us on our phones, right? To your point, it's all phones. So I think along the lines of not only the tools internally, you brought up estimating, we're constantly trying to evolve our tools and keep up with those tools to enable our salespeople to be more efficient, right? More accurate with respect to how they're estimating, that sort of thing. But if you think about the aspects of not only your employees, your company employees, a field technician that may be trying to troubleshoot or fix or whatever it may be, chiller, BAS, air handler, whatever it may be, right? But then the internal, the external employee, right? The building technician that's trying to maintain and just keep the wheels going on the building, right? So a free distribution of those tools to allow that building technician to do his or her job is essential right? Some of those tools are readily available from your provider, whatever that system provider may be. Some of them may not be, right? They may be looking at the business along the lines of trying to monetize, constricting the access to those tools, okay? If you look at internally, right, in terms of the tools for a company's technicians and service providers, right, it's got to be a constant evolution. Going back to that manual that I was talking about, right? Now everything, we used to have this Johnson Controls called a FAN 410 document with all the terminations of the terminal strips and all the stuff, the technical stuff to really program and commission a controller. All of that now is on your phone, right? To try to be more efficient. So we enter into a conversation about AI. Now it will enter in, those tools are going to evolve to be able to ask the phone, ask your personal AI assistant, how do I do this? How do I do that, right? And it's going to be able to talk to you or bring up a web page, right? Bring up a PDF of a commissioning document or whatever it may be, right? So AI is entering into it, at least with us. We're not bleeding edge in terms of adopting all that right now, but particularly within Johnson Controls, it's coming. And you have to have it. You have to have it to attract the people that you need within your business.
Kerry, before you jump on to the next question, I just want to add one more thing, because one of the things that you mentioned was cost, right? And I think Dave actually hit it as well, and Chip, you added on to it. There's that cost of what is the cost of implementing this, right? And that's one of the major questions that many people ask. What's the cost of implementing this? What is my ROI on this going to look like? Now, David mentioned, hey, what is the cost of you not doing it, right? You got to think about that. And I'll give you an example that might, resonate with a lot of folks that are here. So if you're a system integrator or a mechanical contractor, and most of the folks here are either contractors or manufacturers. So in either case, if you're a contractor, the hope is you started your contracting company, 15, 20 years down the road, you're ready to retire, you want to make it into a family legacy whereby you want to hand it over to your kids, or you want an exit, you want to sell, right? So what really happens? If you've not adopted tools that have kept your company up to par with the rest of the industry, one, your kids don't want your company because they cannot operate your company because you don't have the right tools, they don't have the tools they can interact with. Secondly, you think, okay, if my kids don't want the company, maybe I can sell it. Now, I've looked at a few companies out there, and I can tell you, as soon as I talk to them and I find out that the tool that they rely on is based on one or two people in the company who are about to retire, that 10x multiplier goes to 0x. Because you really can't do anything with it, right? So you've got to think beyond, hey, this is the initial cost of me putting this tool in. You got to think about, what's this tool going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Am I going to be able to incorporate things like AI? And do I have the capability to implement that when that comes along? Right.
But I mean, I think there's a saying. I mean, if I'm listening back to what you're kind of advocating, which is new solutions to come in time to sort of do it. I think, at least in my experience, there's a saying which is you can get good, cheap, and fast, and you can get 2 of the 3. You can't get 3 of the 3. So, and I think that's, so the idea is you can get good and cheap, but you can't get fast. You can get fast and cheap, but you don't get good, right? Like, so, there's a sense of urgency that's coming from the panel on to do something, but I think practically we have technical debt, which we were talking about before the panel started, right, which is a software kind of term. For the second you write software, it's now become a liability to your business because it's going to need to be replaced in 5 years' time by new software, right? So if you use that concept and say, everybody in this room at some point invested in something, and now it's 5 years on, and that's now outdated, and they got to go make another investment. I mean, how do you think about that? Like, can you get all 3 now? Because obviously, from a software perspective, software's dropped down and costs a lot now. So maybe you can get good software that's fast and cheap, but then you've still got the implementation and the training of the people. So maybe just some real practical examples there.
And I think that's a great question, right? That's a great question because the good, cheap, fast analogy works for hardware products. Because it's not going to change. So good, cheap, and fast, I have a phone. Well, next time something comes around 3 years, 4 years from now, I'm going to just evaluate it based on its hardware capabilities, right? But if you're going good, cheap, and fast when it comes to tools, you're looking at software, you also need to think about the company that you're investing in, the software you're buying. What is their track record? What are their plans? Are they going to be here 3 years from now? Are they going to be here 2 years from now? Are they adopting all of the new stuff? So it's a great question. So for me, the good, cheap, and fast analogy only works for hardware. If you're looking at it from a software standpoint, you have to add on to it and say good, cheap, and fast, as well as, hey, what is their plans? What is the plans of that particular software company? Where are they headed? Do they have the bandwidth? Do they have the fuel and gas in the tank to keep going? To keep you up to date. Right?
Yeah, I think it's the good, cheap, and fast kind of goes out the window when you're talking about a software product. I've seen a really good software product that was inexpensive, didn't get used, right? So it's completely worthless. And I've also seen, a pretty rough product that cost a lot of money that they really grinded to use this product and they got good ROI on it. So I think what you have to look at is your willingness to implement it. The tool itself is just that. It's just a tool. And it should be a force multiplier to your staff. So, we're really here to talk about scaling your team. So like scaling people to make them more efficient, to drive more revenue or drive higher margin. And, looking at the audience, we have a lot of system integrators and we have mechanical contractors. The average labor percentage in a controls construction job right now is 30-40% labor. That's your labor. It could be your subcontractor's labor. Mechanical service, right? It's almost all labor, right? So we have to find a way to take a person that gives you 8 hours of value for the same price, get 10 hours of value out of them. So good, cheap, and fast. If the software can make you fast, you've already won, right? So I think that's where that conversation really needs to focus.
Yeah, staying with that theme about good, fast, and cheap, I think of the concept of good, and particularly with software, it's in the eye of the beholder, right? I'm not talking about technicians for tools. I may be talking about things like analytics software or whatever, things that are delivered to your clients, right, to use to create efficiencies or to create an outcome within your business. So with this example of a 5-year life cycle for software, right? So you make an evaluation to invest in this outcome, in this tool to deliver an outcome, right? So let's look at your staff, right? Who are the people within your entity, your client's entity, that are going to be using and gaining the outcome from this tool, right? Are they equipped with the training and the expertise to be able to use it, right? I think of analytics. Analytics is a tremendous outcome-based software tool that is out there. But I also see a gap in the technical talent to be able to use the tool and understand it, right? Your average building technician, your average facility operator within a building is not necessarily the target for your tool, but if that's what you're just trying to keep the wheels on in a facility, whatever, and you get sold this technology, right? This outcome-based technology. Is your staff, are your employees capable of using it to achieve that outcome, right? So that goes to readiness and readiness for your employees to be able to utilize this technology, right? So.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, though. If you look at mainstream media, probably globally, I think there's a lot of people, particularly entering the industry at a young age, that their jobs are going to be replaced by AI. Is that really? Can technology really actually ever replace in this industry? Let's not go off into other industries where maybe this is possible. It seems to me that the big opportunity is you guys are connecting your customers and your systems together with humans, right? And so, back to your point, Chip, you're talking about having an AI bot that's helping you organize your day. It just help me understand, what are we trying to augment a human to make them better in front of the customer, have more information about the product and at their tip of the fingers because the chatbot's telling them the answers to the question? Or are we actually, coming back to the cost side of the organization, trying to remove humans from the costs of us running our businesses? Where is the balance?
Well, I can speak to that. And I'll give you a real-world example, right? So I remember sitting in a meeting with a chief engineer of a hospital, and I was selling to this particular individual at the time, and him arguing over a service call, explaining to me that, your technician sat down in front of the computer and spent half a day with your technical support people online trying to troubleshoot and figure out the problem that they were trying to solve within my system, right? I'm not paying for that individual to sit on the phone. If he or she doesn't have the expertise to be able to come into my facility and solve my problem without spending half a day to essentially get trained to fix it, I'm not paying for his training time, right? So can the tools that are evolving in our industry make them more efficient? Will they be replaced? To your question, I would say absolutely not. It's still going to be a human-centric business. There's just no getting around it, right? You see it on both sides, right? From a service company or from an installation company, right? You're selling an overall solution, right? Or an overall outcome. There's no way that it can be automated, right? Humans still have to be involved with the installation of these systems, the maintenance of these systems, and frankly, the customer satisfaction that those things generate, right? So that cannot be automated. But can you deliver tools, right? To my example, whereas I don't have to spend time, right, with my technical support group on the phone trying to figure something out. Is there something where I can use that AI bot, whatever that tool is? How do I commission this particular controller? How do I, enable this particular software, right? And you're able to get real-time answers much quicker than you could through, some form of human intervention. That's where I see more efficiency, on the delivery side of the business.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else?
Yeah. I love a good AI question. I think that's obviously a big topic for everybody. So just a quick question to the crowd here. Who uses ChatGPT at least once a week? Raise your hand. Okay.
Wow.
Keep your hand up if you use it at least once a day. Wow. That's awesome, right?
Wow.
I'm a once a day type of person. So I've got it on my phone. It's, it's an everyday tool to me. So, to answer the question, I think everybody here who's using it knows it can't replace you, but you're using it to get some efficiency. And we're in a very labor-driven, skilled labor workforce dependent industry. So we're not going to see AI replacing the people in the field, maybe generations from now, but not anytime soon. What we're seeing is AI becoming a multiplier from a labor force standpoint. So what I think will get replaced are the people who have not adopted AI in their daily life. If you're not using AI tools to make yourself more efficient, you're going to turn into a dinosaur. And somebody who is using AI to make themselves more proficient and more attractive, those are the people that are going to get replaced. Mm-hmm. And it won't be AI replacing them, it'll be of their own doing. So I'm glad a lot of hands went up.
That's amazing.
To me, there's a use case for anything that you're doing today with AI. And the investment in doing a little training with ChatGPT to get it to be familiar with a task that you do repetitively, there's a lot of value in that. In fact, I used it to map out the best route, to go through the floor tomorrow, because I knew there were certain booths I wanted to hit, and I've got a bad knee, so I don't want to spend 4 hours walking. So I listed all the places I wanted to go, and I gave it an Excel spreadsheet of all the booths, and I told it, here's how it's organized. Give me a path that puts me through all these booths in the most efficient walking manner. And it came back and just gave me an order. So now I know exactly how to go, and maybe my knee won't be burnt out by the end of the day. So simple things like that. You can use this in your business life. So that's what I would encourage people to do, is just embrace it and make sure that your employees are embracing it. Just don't be afraid of it. I mean, when it comes to AI, I think resistance is futile. So you need to get on board early.
So what David said was kind of interesting. It's interesting to me because I don't use ChatGPT.
Yeah, I don't either.
So I'm going to get replaced pretty soon.
Yeah.
The only time I do use
Might be
any AI is I've got Gemini on the phone, and I use Gemini just to screw with it. As in, I ask it weird questions so you can build a profile for myself, right? I just mess around with it. But back to the AI question, I don't think AI is going to replace human beings. It's not going to happen. And I'll tell you why. It's going to make them more efficient than they are today, right? Now you have to ask yourself the question, how efficient are they today compared to 10 years ago? Mm-hmm. So when you put that into perspective, and I'll just give you an example, everybody's got phones. Most people are on social media, and they spend so much time on the phones, right? So about 10, 20 years ago, if I had 3 employees, they would probably knock out 50 tasks a day. Knock it out just like that. Then we got emails, we got a whole bunch of stuff. We start forwarding memes, we start forwarding stories, we copy everybody and their brother. All of a sudden, these 3 employees that were knocking out 50 tasks a day are only able to knock out like 10 a day. So what do? I go hire a few more folks because they're wasting so much time. This is when you make the mistake of applying technology to the wrong things, right? So then they're not as efficient. Now AI is coming in. What does AI help them do? So each one of them is probably getting 500 emails a day. So now AI is trying to sort through the emails and say, here, these are the 5 tasks that you need to get done today without you having to read through it. So they're trying to get people back to being as efficient as they can be and using the tools in an appropriate manner. So I don't think it's going to. I think what it's going to do is going to help you get more efficient, right? And as you get more efficient, there are certain things AI cannot do until they just start having robots out there that can actually go out there and change a light bulb, that can actually, remove a valve, It's not going to happen. I think there is so much AI speak in the market, and that AI speak that's in the market is strictly from a marketing standpoint. Yeah. So you've got these companies that are getting into AI, and they're telling you they can do everything and everything. So you think about it, ChatGPT was up there with their stocks up there. All of a sudden, DeepSeek shows up, right? And the whole thing collapses because that marketing speak did not go anywhere, right? So far, have you been able to use ChatGPT to do things that are phenomenal, that is way beyond just you spending a few more hours to do certain things? What you did with ChatGPT to track that stuff, that's great.
That's cool.
That's cool. So there are certain things you can use it for. But if you sit on ChatGPT all day long, you will not get most of your basic chats done, your basic activities done. So you've got to get back to your core and get those knocked out, right?
But I think there's one of the things that I think, and I learned this as a young sales leader, where I was fortunate enough to meet someone who managed sales people much better than I did at the time, and they sort of said, be very careful about what objections your salespeople hit or give you for missing their targets. Mm-hmm. Because if you accept one, they will use that against you every time and why they missed their targets. And so a little bit irrelevant kind of story, but the point I want to talk about is let's talk about the shortage of staff, because I feel like that's one of the sales objections that people have, which is if I had more skilled labor, I would be able to do more, and I'd be able to grow my business, and I'd be able to go into different regions, and I'd be much more successful. It feels like it's a bit more nuanced from what you're saying. So what you're saying is, assuming that you didn't pick up a new contract in Texas and have to suddenly have 40 people in Texas that you didn't. Let's just take that as a question off the table at the moment, and just said you're running your business as you do now. Is there a staff shortage, and then if there is, because if you can augment it with these tools, then you should be able to make these people 10-20% more efficient. So then you don't need, say, if you have 100 people, you don't need to hire more people. I mean, I think we need to we need to help the people here understand, what is actually this problem, and is it actually a real problem that they're dealing with, or is it people just wanting to, as soon as you give someone a manager title, they need to have people to manage, right? Is that what we're struggling with from your perspective?
I think of our clients, our mutual clients, right, being facility owners, right? We all deliver to facility owners, property management firms, hospitals, college campuses, whatever it may be, right? And so in the case of certainly within Johnson Controls, there's always this talent deficit. There's no question of that. But there's also this talent deficit within your clients, right? When I go around and I give presentation about the trends in the industry, right? I joke about nickname Boiler Room Bob, right? These chief engineers been in the facility for 30 years. Those guys are retiring. Guys and gals are retiring, okay? So that loss of that intellectual property in the industry is irreplaceable, right? So you replace those individuals either with somebody literally coming in, maybe with a 4-year degree, maybe with an associate's degree from a community college, whatever it may be, But how do you get them up to speed? It's kind of like the world of sales these days, right? How do you get your salespeople more productive faster? Well, how do you get a facility operations technician, engineer, familiar with the facility and more efficient faster, okay? So think about the learning and development that you can deliver to those individuals, right? The companies that you work with that can provide that learning and development, right? And then there's certainly a cost, but it's an unavoidable cost. You have to make that investment. If I am considering going to work for one of our clients, mutual clients, right? That's one of my questions, right? You're in the interview. What questions do you have of us, right? Well, how do I get trained, right? How do you train me? So that's a huge opportunity, right, for us to understand who we're working with in terms of companies that we endorse and utilize with our mutual clients, but then also giving an understanding of that same thing, right, the development of their employees and how you can go about doing that and helping them do that, okay?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead. I do think that answer, there is a staff shortage, you know, in a nutshell, but it is relative to what kind of tools you have for the current staff, right? So you have folks that are retiring, they're used to doing certain things in a particular manner. There are people that you could potentially hire, but they can't use the tools that they were using. So they use something else, right? So you've got to bridge the gap between the two is what I think you need to be able to do. And you also need to understand that it's not always the case that, you know, the newer folks are more efficient. No. There are certain things that we did the old way that is much, much more efficient. And then there are things that are being done in today's world that is more efficient, right? So I use the person that's been in the industry for a long time, doesn't know how to use ChatGPT to ask some simple questions to answer certain things. Well, it makes him less efficient in that mindset, right? At the same time, the newer folks that come in here, and I'll be speaking to all the folks that love to text and send emails as opposed to picking up the phone and calling someone, right? So our newer generation, they love to do that. So what happens, you have a simple question to answer, you end up with 5 emails, 10 texts, when all you could have done is just pick up the phone, call the person and say, hey, how do I do this? And the guy gives you the instructions. So they're not efficient that way. So what I think needs to happen is you need to look at the tools and processes that you currently have. You know, just adapt it or just adopt it towards the folks you currently have. You want to hire another group. What are the tools they are used to? And how do you get to those tools they're used to, but at the same time, the efficiencies from the past as well as knowledge from the past, how do you get a tool set that can transfer that through, right? So within our company, the companies I'm involved with, I tell people, I get really mad if you don't pick up the phone. And there's a reason for it, because I've seen emails that go like a ping pong game, that go back and forth, and it would have copied like 5, 6, 7 different people. And then somebody wants to give a one-line answer and they add somebody else to it. And next thing you know, you look at this whole thing, it's got like 30 emails. And I'm thinking, how many people actually read through 30 emails? How much time was spent instead of them focusing on the jobs they were supposed to do? So if you had a question, you can just pick up the phone and call the person that you think might have the answer to it and move on, right? So, David, do you want to?
Yeah, we all know there's a labor shortage, and it's not just a labor shortage; it's a skilled labor shortage. We can find people, but you have to train them. You know, to Lenny's point, and what I see with the new generation, you know, example, my son's 17, he got his first job, and he had an expectation of, I'm going to be working with computers. He's changing tires. But guess what? He works with a computer because it tells him exactly what he needs to do for that particular vehicle. So his expectations were met. But there's a lot of companies out there where you might step in and you're a new building automation technician and you're trying to learn how to start up a VAV box. And I think back to when, you know, I was that guy 25 years ago. And, you know, there was a senior tech on a ladder, another senior tech on the ground with a computer, and then me. 3 people starting up one VAV box. And I think about how efficient that was back then, right? But we did that 140 times over the course of several weeks. And I look at it now, and you should be able to have one person with a mobile device doing multiple tasks at one time, right? That's the reality that we're in. And there's still a lot of resistance to even that. I see a lot of system integrators and technology companies that are still doing things the way we did them 10, 15 years ago. So knowing that we're going to have people available to fill those spots, they have expectations from a technology standpoint. They grew up with screens in their face all day long. They're going to expect that they're not going to be put in front of a piece of paper on an 11 by 17 sheet and have to check a bunch of boxes, right? That's the quickest way to scare off new talent. They're going to expect to have an iPad or some sort of device, that helps them interact with their environment and do their job. So, for anybody who's looking at that cost, to move it to that next direction, with your productivity tools, just think about the people that you're going to need to hire in the next 5 years and what their expectations are going to be with that kind of technology.
Great. I did offer some time for questions, so we've got about 10 minutes, I think, at the moment for questions. I can keep asking them, so if you don't have any, that's fine. But Scott?
So in the building automation industry, the contractors, time on the job is critical. Have you guys seen any innovations that, from the different vendors, manufacturers, or even integrators themselves that have, you talk about, like, they're the ones, the contractors, I feel like, looking for technicians in the BAS space. That's the tightest space for hiring right now. I'm just wondering if you guys have any examples of how tools are able to help these integrators scale up essentially their projects without having to hire more technicians, just specific to that type of role. Do you guys have any examples you can share?
I've got a couple. I've worked with some technologies that are designed specifically to make controls technicians more efficient in doing job checkout and commissioning, right? Instead of having to physically touch everything, you can now, with the right software, let it tell you what you need to go look at, right? Something may not be working. The software told you, so now you go to 10% of the devices instead of 100% of the devices. Fault detection tools, like you mentioned earlier, extremely valuable, but you have to put them in the hands of somebody who knows how to use that. So from a commissioning standpoint, those can be used, in a way that can accelerate things even post-warranty, right? And make sure that you're not having warranty calls after the fact, and you can even generate revenue with it, with the client. So I think embracing something that helps you save time during the job, that is quantifiable, that is, I only go down to 10% of my devices instead of 100%, is an easy win.
Scott, I can help with that. A couple of things along the lines of, and I'll use the word connected in terms of field technicians, connected either to an installation site remotely. Okay, if we think about a traditional building of a building, okay, what is one of the last systems that goes in? Well, traditionally that's the IT system, okay? So HVAC and particularly building automation has to be working and commissioning their systems well in advance of IT being online. So one efficiency example of that is a cellular connected temporary network to the BAS, okay? So, and this is not exclusive to JCI. We have a product that allows that connectivity, but it allows a technician to remotely connect, right, on a temporary basis. There might be cybersecurity issues once the owner occupies, but while the building's being built, you string around the Ethernet cable, you go to all of your supervisory controllers, and then you can get up to speed and connect via a cellular modem. And you can use and build that database, right, remotely on a spun up cloud-based server. And then once the building's ready to go, you can download that database and permanently install it on the on-premises server. So that's one aspect of it, right? There's another aspect that Johnson Controls has called a connected workflow dashboard. And so that's an efficiency tool. As technicians are commissioning, like those VAV boxes, the commissioning records, right, which used to be paper checklists, which we used to have to keep, 3-ring binders of to give to the commissioning agent, all of that is now automated on their phone and uploaded to a connected workflow dashboard. So that dashboard is instantly available to a consultant, to a commissioning agent, to a general contractor to prove progress of the installation of the building, right? But it's no longer a manually recorded thing on a piece of paper kept in a 3-ring binder, right? It's automated and connected to the cloud, right? Until the building is built, till all those records are turned over and can be turned over electronically. So there are a couple of examples.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think the connected dashboard, like you call it, I think that is there to be used. There is a company I've been trying to think about the name. It's based out of New York, and they started a software company recently. And it was a system integrator that's been in the business for about 20, 30 years. And he found a way to actually remotely commission stuff, and you just deploy the software and actually goes through and commissions it. I can't remember the name of the company, but there is a company, and it was started by a system integrator out of New York. So and I've not tried that software out, but I know it does exist, right? So yeah.
Yep. There's a few of them here today.
There's a question at the back. Thanks, Josh.
So we're a rep company out of Wisconsin, and it can be like difficult to. Awesome, thank you. So for like a rep manufacturer, where it can be difficult to understand, like where sometimes it feels like you're chasing your tail with these AI and innovative, finding an innovative solution for your company and where to go. So it's kind of difficult to figure out where to start. Would you have any recommendations on how to figure out where to jump into the AI field and find an innovative standing point for a company?
Sure. I think every business is obviously very different. So taking the time to really understand where your inefficiencies are is really the first step, because you can't just say an AI tool is going to improve business. Somebody has to manage that tool. You have to pay for it. I see very often just the inappropriate application of technology or AI. A client of mine just told me our president just is forcing me to use a digital twin software. And I said, what's that going to do for you? And he said, cost me more time, and it's not going to help me, right? And I believe him. So really understanding where do you have opportunities for improvement, understand that, get something quantifiable, and then go look for tools that specifically attack that problem, instead of looking for a broad solution that you hope kind of narrows down. So look internally first and go from there.
What comes to mind to your question is maybe a starting place is with the companies and the solutions that you rep, right? What do they have to offer, right, to make my employees more efficient in delivering your products to my customers, right? So what do well, we really don't have much, or it might be, oh my gosh, we got a whole portfolio of tools and efficiency increasing solutions. AI might be a part of it. I think it's, in my world and what I've seen, AI is not like taking over our technicians' workforce today, right? Your innovation in using ChatGPT might be just an example, but you might have one or two employees that do things like that and come up with your own creativity, right? But I would start with the companies that you rep and see what they have to offer first.
I think there are a couple of areas as a rep company that I can think of, and specifically, as a rep company, you're repping a product, and you need to sell that product. You're looking at plans and specifications, and you need to know the count of those things. So there are a number of softwares out there that actually go out there and read through plans, and it's able to identify symbols, and based on those symbols, we'll be able to. So rather than you having the drawings on your table and going through and highlighting on every single page and writing quantities down, there is software out there that can actually count devices and tell you quantities, right? The other aspect that I'm aware of within one of the companies that I'm with, we have AI that's able to read through specifications, like a 1,000-page specification, and I can ask it a question and say, hey, who's going to provide power to the VAV boxes? It's this very simple, common thing, right?
That's great.
Yeah,
that's a great
because that's
application of it.
From years of
oh my gosh, yeah.
doing projects, and you end up with, well, is it electrical or is it mechanical? And if it's mechanical, it's under my scope, or can I put a transformer and wire, do whatever I need to do. And it's able to scrub through thousands of pages of the specification, and it pull up every single section that refers to power, not only on the mechanical side, but also on the electrical side, that can then enable you to write the right RFI or position your RFI to get a change order. So one or the other, right?
Great example.
So there are those kind of tools available, and that's where I'll go with it, right? I wouldn't try to say, hey, can you try and size all these grills for me? It's not there yet, right? But you start from those steps, and with time, you can get to the next one, right?
I mean, we do have a session on Wednesday, which is about how to actually use AI in the context that you guys are coming from. So if you missed the session this morning where we ran through what's coming up in our free sessions, please check that out. I can't remember exact time. I think it's in the afternoon. I know Brad, who's one of our contributing editors, is running that. Any other quick questions? I don't know, with Mike, if it's coming up here. 10:30 tomorrow. Sorry, it's just right here, the guy.
So I want to flip the script or perspective a little bit to a building owner or building representative. So how does the software or the talent, your tech, help the talent of the building owner? Because you have these wonderful tools for the installers or the integrators, and we acknowledge there's a skilled technician labor shortage on both sides of this equation. So how does it help the building owner, or can it help the building owner?
I was hoping we'd get a question.
I was waiting for this one. Thank you. Thank you for asking the question. And certainly, I've seen other examples of it from competitors of Johnson Controls, but I'll give you a Johnson Controls, paint the picture from that aspect of it. And primarily, it comes delivered to your building engineers, your building techs, right, through what we call the user experience, through a BAS, okay? So you log into the BAS and you see whatever you see the user experience. So how can that make a technician more efficient? Well, first of all, it's mobility, right? Can I ask, provided that your client, your building owner, allows internet connectivity to the BAS, right? They can access the BAS anywhere, anytime, any browser, any connected device, right? So on your phone, okay, you can access, and the look and feel of that software is the same as it is when you're logged into the server. Right? It's just scaled differently. HTML5 scales the screen differently, right? You just flip through some more screens versus a 60-inch monitor. So that's one aspect. Another aspect of it is how you navigate through a facility. So somebody give me an example. If a hot or a cold call comes into a facility, how is it addressed? How is it called in from, let's say, a teacher or a principal or anybody? How is it called in? How do they declare where in the building the hot or cold call is?
My room's hot.
Do they say VAV box number 1-4 is not working?
My
Room 101, right? Room 101 is hot. Classroom 101, patient room 1-4, right? Okay, so we call that spaces to equipment relationships, okay? So if a technician is able to get that call, room 104 is hot, and they're able to search on the BAS, room 104, right? Through that software, they're able to link to the equipment. They're also able to link to a page that takes the hierarchy of equipment all the way from the VAV box to the air handler to the central plant and efficiently diagnose and troubleshoot, right? Automatically, right? In one screen. But they navigate via these spaces. So they don't have to worry about the architecture of the BAS. They don't have to worry about the architecture or how the HVAC system is structured or what box serves what space, okay? Another aspect of it is fault detection, okay? That's a common term. It's been around for quite some time, okay? So fault detection is not an alarm, right? It points out abnormal conditions that the system is scanning for, right? So as a learning tool, if I'm a less experienced HVAC tech, this is my to-do list. I'm able to look at my faults and go in and proactively take care of these faults, look at these faults. There's further software that does what's called a triaging of those faults. You're able to penetrate into the fault, into the system. It gives you all the points that are part of the condition of the fault that's occurring. It tells you and explains to you what the fault is. Then it also gives you what caused the fault, right? Then you're able to read into what caused the fault and actually try this, try this, try this, and then determine what actually solves the fault, okay? So several aspects, and those are just three, right, that I would suggest are great examples.
And I know we're out of time. My answer to that would be slightly different, but Dave, if you want to chat afterward, I'll hang around.
Thanks, everyone. I was going to ask the panel to finish up with some thoughts, but we are running right up onto time. We don't actually need to leave this room at the moment. Our next session is at 1 o'clock. Again, most of our sessions are in this room on controlling giant heat pumps. So if you do have any questions that you want to direct to the panel, I don't know if they're all running out the door, but feel free to come up and have a chat to
We'll
us.
be here. We'll be here. Yeah, we'll hang out.
For a while.
Yep.
And hope you enjoy the next few days. Thanks.